You ever heard of the expression that less is more? Well, that's what we're kind of talking about today. The Van Gogh Hedin 100, absolutely awesome tent. It's withstood every element that has been thrown at it, from the rains to the freeze. So why am I camping in this cheap dome tent? Here's why. The Van Gogh Hedin 100 is a 3-season tent, but it has a problem in these conditions. When it's 35 degrees Celsius, it has a big problem. And that problem is the vents. There simply isn't enough airflow getting into the tent, especially throughout daylight hours. Literally, when the sun rises, that tent is no longer a tent, it is an oven. With this cheap dome tent, we have two huge bug mesh doors allowing air to flow in. Of course, we have vents at the top, but also we have this window at the back, so air can flow through the front and come out the back. Absolutely maximum airflow. If I strategically position this tent into the wind, I can lay within this tent midday and not be roasting. The Hedin 100 is a trekking pole tent, therefore it needs to be staked out. It needs to be anchored to the ground to be able to stand. There's no two ways about it, whereas this cheap dome tent, freestanding, I don't even need to peg it out. It's not pegged out now, there's a slight breeze, but the weight of my gear within it is holding it down. It's not going to go anywhere. If I wanted to, I could peg it out, but I don't need to. And maybe this isn't the spot for it. You can pick it up, move it without having to take it down. And the ease of setup, just 2 poles in the sleeves, and that's it. I can sit up in the Hedin 100, but I have to be directly center. There's been a few occasions where obviously sweating, my back touches the inner tent and it sticks to me. Not great. So obviously 1-person tent, space is at a minimum, even more so considering I'm not leaving my gear in the vestibule outside due to the insects, the ants. Primarily, if you leave any of your gear outside, it will just be invaded by the ants. No good. So I have to take that gear, put it inside the tent with me, and that makes space even more tight. Whereas this cheap dome tent says it's 4 persons. It's not 4 persons. They're never 4 persons. It's not even a 3-person, 2-person. Fantastic. Right, 1 person, even better. I can store so much gear in here, still have room to move around. I can sit up in here without touching any of the walls. I can get changed in here. It's pro after pro. As far as weight and size, by no means are either of these tents ultra light. Obviously the Hedin 100 uses trekking poles to be assembled. This has 2 fiberglass poles, trekking poles being heavier than the fiberglass poles. Actually, I believe the Hedin 100 is heavier than this 4-person dome tent. When packed away, this tent is a lot more streamlined. I can put it on the side of my pack and it's good to go. The Hedin 100 is a bit more of a lump. It's not compact. So again, I'm thinking cheap dome tent. And I'm not taking anything away from the Hedin 100. The Hedin 100 is the best tent I've ever used, just not here. And I think it's important to point out because obviously it goes to show that you don't need to spend a lot of money to get outside and enjoy the outdoors. This cheap dome tent, okay, I got a cheap closed cell foam roll mat and a cheap stove and a cheap cook set. In a temperate climate, the Hedin 100 is going to be a far superior tent than this. But we're not in a temperate climate, and so this is a far better tent than the Hedin 100.